A pleasant good morning to everyone. Welcome once again to another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Yours truly, Carlos Brown, joined by a special guest co-host. Of course, if I give you two guesses, you'll get it on the first one. But Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Alcorn is in Baton Rouge, a huge matchup. And I've heard from the Alcorn, a few fans already. They're confident. Their men's basketball team is on a winning streak. Southern's on a winning streak. Hashtag somebody's streak is going to end today. And I also replied to that person, hashtag this is not football. So I take the first shot there. Well, it's not football because we know the struggles. Charles, good morning to you. And what was I doing when you came to Studio B? What was I watching?
Carlos Brown was on YouTube replaying, reliving, relishing the Alcorn Southern SWAC championship games. He was looking at it probably, the 20th time probably?
Oh, yeah, 25. Who's counting? Oh, and you know what? After the 25th time, you're still disappointed and angry.
Yeah.
But that's football. That was football. And this is basketball. First and foremost, let me tell you, our guest, of course, Charles Edmond, special guest co-host, joining us very shortly in about 7 to 8 minutes. He's the head baseball coach at Southern University, Coach Carrick Jackson, and defending SWAC baseball champions. That was last year. Now it's this year. The season is about to start. Could you say that there is some pressure? Will there be a bullseye on Southern University baseball back? A young team. One position player coming back. Some pitching coming back. An ambitious schedule. Wow. Other competitors are not going to care about all that.
Well, you got to do it all over again. And, congratulations to Coach Jackson, what he did last year. I was actually and there's a question I want to ask him about, the regionals and having success there. I was in Starkville when they played up there for the baseball regional. And, just the little things and trying to get over the hump and winning a regional game and advancing to the super regional. Am I dreaming? Am I drunk when I say that? I think in baseball it's possible. But you're not saying you got to be perfect, but you got to do all the little things right. So get a chance to really talk to him about that young coach. And I think, he has a great respect of his players. When you have a young coach, you're kind of on their level a little bit. So, congratulations to him. And, baseball's just right around the corner, a couple of weeks away, I believe, 3 weeks away.
Yeah, well, February the 14th for Southern at UNO.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we'll ask him about the schedule, any subtractions from his staff, players to watch, his perspective on this upcoming season. And also, there's change in the wind for baseball that's coming up.
A bunch of changes.
Yeah, so we'll get his take on those topics and more. Then Coach Van Pettaway. He'll join me in hour number one as well. Former Alabama A&M men's basketball coach. I don't know if I ever told you this, but my favorite opposing coach that I saw coming to the FG Clark Activity Center, very animated, very tough. What was it, 40 minutes of hell SWAC style?
Yeah.
And just passionate on the side, court side, not sideline, court side. So we'll join him. We'll get his thoughts on the passing of Kobe Bryant and also Southwestern Athletic Conference, some big games. Game of the week, Alcorn State visiting Southern University.
It's not football, is it?
No, it's not football. It's basketball. And I tell you what, we're going to get into more of it, but I'll say this briefly. I talked to some people that will just, upset. Southern men's basketball team 0-3 to start the conference play. Here we go again. And I say, well, next year is the year I'm pointing to. They're going to be better. If this team, I'm talking about the men's, Coach Wood, if they're able to pull it off today, 6-3, 6 straight wins, starting 0-3. I'm not gonna pat myself on the back because then they got to go on the road, Grambling and Jackson State next weekend, and then it starts all over again. But boy, what a pleasant surprise! And my goal for them was to get in that top four, secure a home game in the quarterfinals of the tournament. You win one, and then you get in Birmingham.
Who would have thought where these two teams are, Southern and Alcorn, right now in the top four, when last year both teams barely made the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
It took a Valley loss at home to Grambling, and it was an upset of sorts because Valley had been playing well. By Valley losing that game, that got us in the tournament. Southern, I think, won a couple of nights before. That got them in. But, who would have thought that? Both teams picked to finish. I think our men's teams picked to finish ninth.
And I believe the women as well.
Women as well, and we're right there. So, hey, in this conference, I think the wins do change every few years. You don't have Shakai Hill for Grambling as one of the top players and on the women's side. And then for the men, you don't have the McKnights of the world, one of the top scorers in the country from last year. So I think it's a little bit more wide open. It'll be interesting to see today what the Texas teams do as they go to Alabama State and A&M. I'll say this now. I don't think it's any guarantee that the Texas team is going to come out of Alabama with the win. If they both go 0-2, I wouldn't be totally surprised because I think the way Bama State's been playing, they've been close. A week ago here, Southern had a 19-point lead. They cut it to 3. And then at our place, there was a possession away. A&M, a scrappy athletic bunch. It's tough to win in Montgomery and Huntsville. So I think some things could change. The top four could be shaken up a little bit if whoever takes care of business in this Alcorn Southern game and if the Texas team stumble today.
Still, after Monday, I guess it'll be a halfway point in the conference,
yep.
And then you got to do it all over again, and you got to be consistent and with winning at home, splitting on the road, and now we add a third thing. You got to do well on Monday nights. I'm hearing this a lot now. Monday nights are so difficult. Before we get to Coach Jackson in a few minutes, recap Southern's basketball last week. Of course, on the women's side, they defeated Alabama State 69-47, 22-point victory. Then they followed that up, losing at the half by 2 points to Alabama A&M, but they hold on and win 55-46 on the women's side. On the men's side, big lead, as you stated, against Alabama State. They defeat Alabama State 80-71, and then that Monday night against the Fab Five plus 21-point victory over Alabama A&M. So Southern women and men, they held serve at home. And again, the men are on a five-game winning streak. The women, after a 21-point loss at home to Jackson State, they have seemed to gotten back on the right road. But, I'm going to just say this. It's tough to win on the road. But today I think it's a little bit more of a competitive game, I think, with two teams that kind of mirror each other. And I got a chance to hear Coach Pruitt talk a little bit with you at I think it was maybe before or after the women's basketball game. Her early scouting report was Southern and Alcorn, they play the same type of defense. The key thing for Alcorn women is going to be able to offensively score points and don't go through any of those droughts. So two teams that mirror each other, and traditionally you've seen Alcorn come in and pull off some upsets in Southern women's basketball team. So I'm saying all this to say I think both games going to be very, very competitive.
If you're looking for offense today, you're not going to find it.
It's all defense.
It's all defense. The Braves are the number one defensive team in the conference. Southern also up there. The Braves are the number one speaking of men, the Braves are the number one three-point shooting team in the conference. Southern's number one in defending the three. So I think first team to 60 wins. I think it's going to be a slog in both games. The Lady Braves are ranked nationally in turnovers, assists. So they're going to get you to turn it over 20, 25 times. The question is, like you said, offensively, can they convert those turnovers into points? And that's been a struggle for this team.
And men, they've got to perimeter defense, 3-point field goal. They've got to limit Alcorn State in that regards. But we're going to have much more basketball. We're going to take a quick timeout. When we return, we'll have Coach Kerrick Jackson, head men's baseball coach at Southern University. He joins me next. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
This is Al Wash with ALW Entertainment, the promoter of the State Fair Classic, and I want y'all to keep your dial because I listen to the Open Mic Network every day. Keep the dial locked in.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Today's first guest, Coach Kerrick Jackson, baseball coach at Southern University. Coach Jackson, good morning to you. And although it's February 1st, Happy New Year, Coach.
Good morning to you and Happy New Year as well.
A new year, new expectations. Last year, 32-24. Last time we kind of really, before we talked to you, you were getting ready to battle Alabama State for the SWAC Baseball Tournament Championship. Coach, doesn't that seem so far away compared to now?
You know what? It actually doesn't when you look at it, because we had a really good last year, and I think things are kind of still fresh a little bit, and I think anytime you get close to starting again, when you're ready to start, what happened doesn't seem as far away as it does when you're waiting to start. And so yeah, no, it's we've turned the page and getting ready for this year and setting some new expectations for ourselves. But no, we're excited.
Coach, let's talk about this new year. Your perspective on your team coming in for 2020.
So we're a young team. We're talented. We're only returning one position player from last year's championship lineup. So that will be a challenge for us. I'm a firm believer in, if you're trying to build something, we had junior college players last year. We have some transfers this year, but we're really pushing to go more high school kids, understanding what comes with that, that there's going to be some trials and tribulations along the way, but it's a really, really talented group of young men. They're just going to have their bumps and bruises as we kind of grow and mature them through this thing, but they have a very high upside. So we're willing to roll the dice and put some young kids out there and see what happens.
Freshmen that could make an impact: Brandon Green and catcher and shortstop Bubba Thompson. They're as good as advertised, albeit freshmen.
You know what? I think so. I think both of them will have their challenges. Again, Bubba has come in and from day one kind of locked down that shortstop position. And Brandon is in competition with some other guys in that catching spot. But again, for the future, I think he's that guy for us for the future. We may have to spell him a bit at times. It'll speed up on him a little bit. And, as you well know, that catching position is key. The captain of the defense kind of keep things in order, keeps people slowed down when they need to be slowed down. So he gets sped up a little bit at times right now. And so we're trying to coach him through those things and get him to slow the game down. But what he will bring long term will definitely be worthy.
Coach Jackson, this is Charles Edmond. Good to talk to you. Couple of questions for you. What you said about building a team in terms of freshmen from the ground up is basically what you're saying. That's so refreshing because you talk to coaches in other sports in this conference, football and basketball. There's a belief that, you go the JUCO route, you get these grad transfers, and a lot of people use the term quick fix. But to hear you say that you don't have a problem with building a team from the ground up, knowing that there's going to be a learning curve, that's kind of refreshing because not a lot, the pressure to win is now in just about every sport. It's not build it from the ground up. You got to have the house built like yesterday. So to just talk about that approach, and just doing that, is it just baseball just a different animal, you think?
No, you know what? I don't think we're necessarily different than any other sport, like you said, specifically in this conference. I think it's just for me, I just believe things should be done a certain way. And at the end of the day, if they decide to let me go because they didn't think I was the right person for the job, then I wasn't the right person for the job. But I'm not interested in just having a quick fix. I want to build something that will year after year be a monster. And that's not going to be a quick fix solution. And I think when you recruit and do it with high school kids, that you have an opportunity for them to have a connection. There's a development process that takes place there. When you talk about determining and defining a culture, I think that's the only way you can do it. I don't think you can, let me rephrase that. I think you can define a culture with transfers and grad transfers, but that's not the culture that I want. I want a culture here where we have some norms, we establish some things, grades are important, community service is important, the brotherhood is important, understanding what they're a part of is important, and what their place is in the history of this program that's been around for a little bit over 100 years. And so I think when you can bring in high school kids, you have a better shot of doing that. And not to say that we won't have junior college players, because we will, but our focus primarily is going to be in bringing in high school kids and growing those kids up. And all of a sudden now we find out that catcher that we brought in isn't good enough. Well, then we got to go get a junior college guy, or we need some arms. We got to go get a junior college guy. But in our 20 class, we've signed 10 kids, and only one of them at this time, only one of them is a junior college transfer.
Coach, I got one other question for you. I was in Starkville for the regionals last year. Didn't get a chance to speak with you, but I made the trip up. I always like to support the SWAC team. If Alcorn's not in it, obviously, it was a short trip from my house to Starkville. And, just talk about that whole experience. And because I want to see us get to the super regionals. And in baseball, the margin of victory in the regionals is so small. The little things you have to do, you have to move runners along. You have to be able to make the basic plays. Just talk about that experience. I can just watch your face from the stands. I mean, there were chances that you had against Mississippi State. You had them on the ropes. Fans were oohing and ahhing on every borderline pitch. Just talk about that experience and the hunger to get back there.
It was a great experience, and I'm glad that the NCAA kind of let us and let our kids have that experience somewhere else besides sending us to LSU. And I think our kids they were in a great place mentally. I told some people the other day, for whatever reason, throughout the conference tournament, every game we had nervous energy, every single game, except for the championship game. And I think what helped us with that was the 2-hour rain delay. But when we got to Mississippi State, we got to practice that Thursday on the field. We kind of went through the paces a little bit, and when we showed up on game day, there was no nervous energy. We were out there. Our kids were ready. The one thing that we did really, really well last year was we scored runs, and we weren't scared of anybody when it came to that. And we had a chance to win that game and should have won that game. And that's no disrespect to Mississippi State. But that was one of the things that I said in the post conference was I'm not a small victory guy, and we let one get away. And like you said, we turn a double play, we throw some more strikes. We had a couple base running mistakes that were little things that people didn't necessarily see. But that's part of the process with when you establish that culture and you're winning on a regular basis, those things happen by default. And we're going to get to that point. And when we get to that point, I think it puts us in a position where we can be competitive with anybody in the country.
Visiting with Coach Kerrick Jackson, head baseball coach at Southern University last year, 32-24. And listen to you guys talking about that experience with Mississippi State. Coach, I looked at the schedule. First thing came to my mind, ambitious schedule. Kind of jotted down some of the non-conference games. Of course, LSU, Mississippi State, Tulane, Texas Tech, and the Tulane, I believe, Coach, help me out. Isn't it a 3-game series?
It's a 3-game series. We'll play there Friday. They'll come here and play us Saturday, and we'll go back there Sunday.
So, a young team, outstanding schedule, preparing for conference play, and we'll get into the Texas Southerns because, Coach, let me say that was like two heavyweight boxers going at it. doing a regular season. How many one-run games decided the game? I mean,
it was and there, Coach Rob does a great job. And he's one. He does it with more transfers, but I think he just does a really, really good job of having his kids mentally ready to be competitive. And so it was a joy in playing them. Again, I don't necessarily want to end up playing them 9 times again, but the idea of playing them was really like you said, it was just competitive. And you look at what Aaron Solis did in that tournament, and I told him after they beat us in that game and Friday night, because you're talking about a dude that started on Wednesday, came back on Friday in the first game of the doubleheader and closed it out with 20 pitches, and then came back in the second game of the doubleheader against us and closed it out with, I think he threw 60 or 70 pitches. I think he threw 240 pitches in 3 days. And I told him, I said, hey man, that's the ballsiest thing I've ever seen in my life. And so he gets those kids in that right frame of mind. That kid was a senior. He was doing everything in his power to make sure that he gave his team a chance to get to the championship game. Like you said, it was just competitive. And again, our kids, for whatever reason, just had this nervous energy about them during that process. And we couldn't understand why. And I think it really, really cost us in that doubleheader, in that Friday game that we lost to Texas Southern, because we just came out and we just weren't throwing strikes. We weren't doing things characteristic. And then when we played them again that next day, it was a little bit better. But yeah, it's when you look at our non-conference schedule, I wanted to put together a schedule where we put our kids in those environments as much as possible. And again, we may take our lumps early in the year, but if you go to a Texas Tech and you go to a Mississippi State and you play a Southern Miss and you go up and play Missouri State and you play some of these teams in LSU that are perennially in the top 30 in the country, and you're going out there and being in those environments, then when we get back there at the end of the year, again, it won't be a situation where it's new to us. We've been there. We understand. We know how we have to play, how we have to go about our business. And so that's why we're trying to schedule the most non-competitive or non-conference competitive schedule that we can.
Well, Coach, I'm impressed with the fact that, number one, last year, that win over LSU at your place was just impressive. And to get a team like LSU to come across town to play, and you got Tulane coming in, you're able to get some home games in non-conference that a lot of teams in this league would wish they would have. To have LSU come across town to play you, that's impressive, and have Tulane. Just talk about that. Is that a hard sell for, trying to make that happen?
What I think it is I think it's the relationships that I've built prior to coming here with, Travis and I were recruiting coordinators together in the SEC. With Coach Maneri and my former head coach at University of Missouri, Sid Jameson, we're college teammates and really good friends, close friends now. And I think all those guys know what I'm trying to do, so that they know that they're going to be putting themselves and their kids in a situation where it's going to be competitive, that we're going to get after them. And so I think it's as much as them trying to help me in my efforts of what I'm trying to get accomplished here, because I think they understand that for us to be good and to be a player and where we want to go helps college baseball holistically. I think as we move forward, the goal is to try and get some other teams, some of the guys that I know that are in the league in the SEC, when they come in to play LSU, hey, come play us on Wednesday. You're coming in here to play them Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Come here. All those teams charter anyway. So come in one day extra and play us and give us a chance to, host you at our place to help our program and raise its notoriety. And I think that will help us long term, because like I said, the ultimate goal for us obviously is Omaha, but I think to put ourselves in a position where year in and year out, we're considered one of the top teams in the country. That's what we're trying to get accomplished. And I think playing those types of games and having those home games will help us do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Visiting with Coach Kerry Jackson, baseball coach at Southern University. Eli Finney, 6-2, ERA 4.45. Talking about that LSU game, outstanding performance in that game. He's the glue of the pitching staff, of course. Correct, Coach Jackson?
He is definitely, when you look at last year's staff and guys that are coming back, he was obviously our most consistent high-level performer. We lost Connor Whalen, who was a senior, who was our closer, who didn't give up an earned run until the regional. But bringing Eli back, and that's where we've added some transfer pieces to this year's team is on the pitching staff. We got a couple guys that are putting their bid in early spring. Jerome Bohannon has been really, really good with what he's been doing, so we hope he can continue on that pace. But yeah, you look at Eli and what he was able to do, and hoping as a senior that he comes out and he takes it to another level. But I think we're going to have. I think that last year that was our weakest point was our starting pitching. When you look at our ERA is almost 6 last year, but we averaged 8 runs a game. So we helped ourselves out, and we really only did it with 1.5 starting pitchers and a really good bullpen. I think we were 26-3, 26-4 if we had the lead after 6. So I think we've added some transfer pieces that will bolster and give us a better shot with the starting piece and get some more quality starts out of our starting guys. And then I think our bullpen, we've added some depth to it, and I think that's going to be a multi-headed monster with a couple, 3-4 guys back there that we're going to be able to roll out in different situations. And I think that's the difference maker is being able to put yourself in a position where you can manage the game from the 6th through the 9th. Whoever does that, the best wins. That's where games are won and lost. If in our league, for the most part, everybody's got 1 or 2 starters, and they got a guy at the back end that they like. And so what we've tried to do is we've tried to build from the back forward. That understanding that if we can bolster that back end, that we can get our starters to get us 6 innings, and now we're going to be able to run 4 or 5 guys out there in that 6th through the 9th inning. It's not just going to have to be one guy to say, hey, go out there and do it. We're going to be able to do some matchups. We're going to be able to do some situational guys. And I think if these guys perform the way that I think they can perform, then when we have those leads back there, I think we'll be in a good position to be able to shut that thing down.
Yeah, me and Charles are looking at the notes. Bullpen 26-3 after 6 innings. Wow, that's a tremendous stat there, and especially tournament time and regional time. Yeah. Interesting point. Visiting with Coach Kerry Jackson, men's baseball coach at Southern University. Coach, there are some changes we're hearing, and that's going to take place in the conference as far as Southwestern Athletic Conference. Are you at liberty to talk about a couple of them?
Yeah, so obviously nothing's been official yet, but we submitted a proposal to the ADs as a coaching cohort, and basically I wrote up a proposal that we wanted to play everybody in the league So that puts us in obviously in a position where now we can take the top 8 teams, and it's not just going to be East, the 4 from the East and the 4 from the West. So everybody's going to play everybody. We have to wait now for the presidents to vote on it. But everybody's in favor of it. I think it'll be good for our conference. I think we're the other push we're making is to minimize, if not eliminate, the non-Division I games that we play, because I think that'll also help strengthen our conference. I look at our year last year, and there's probably about 5 or 6 games that we left on the table that we could have won, and I would have been curious to see what the committee would have done, the NCAA committee would have done had we finished the year with 36 wins, 37 wins, with the wins against LSU, Memphis, Northwestern State. We had a chance to beat Lamar, some of those other key non-conference wins. If that would have put us in a position where we could have possibly gotten in large, I know it's a stretch, but I think when you look across the board at our conference, we play a pretty competitive non-conference schedule. Alabama State, Jackson State, Texas Southern. They're always playing some of the bigger teams. And so I think if we can start to play more of those games, eliminate some of the non-Division I games, have a 27-game conference schedule, and get us up a little bit, I think our conference RPI can rise a little bit. And maybe one year we do find ourselves where it's us and Alabama State, or Jackson State and Alabama State, or Texas, and all of a sudden now one of the 2 of those teams has 34, 35 wins regular season, and then you add the tournament in there, and we end up with 36, 37 wins. Does the committee look and say, okay, hey, man, there were some key wins here and there. They played 27 conference games. They were dominant in their conference. They won 2 or 3 non-conference games against teams in the top 150 RPI. Maybe we need to put in 2 teams from the SWAC. And I think if we can do something like that, and if everybody's committed to doing that, then you talk about raising the profile, not only on a national landscape, but you talk about raising the recruiting profile of the SWAC and HBCU conferences, when now we become more legitimate players in this thing. And I think that's the ultimate goal.
Coach Jackson, you sound like the commissioner. You sound like Dr. McClellan when you said that. and I say that, and I'm in total agreement with you, because I do know for a fact that the committee, when they look at these team schedules, strength of schedules, they throw out the non-D1 games. It's like they don't even exist. I know we play them. I understand why we play them. We try to get wins. But in the grand scheme of trying to build your resumes, those games don't mean anything to the committee. They're looking, as you said, at quality D1 games. And, we're kind of having that issue with men's and women's basketball. Conference is kind of going to step in on that at some point in time. So you're exactly right. I mean, I think baseball is the ultimate equalizer in terms of, like you said, getting to a super regional, which is, something I've seen Southern play LSU. I've seen Jackson State beat the number 1 team in the country several years ago, Louisiana Lafayette.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's doable. It's tough. I mean, the margin of error is small. You can't commit 3 years. You can't strand 14 runners on base. You can't do that. But I think there's a little bit of an equalizer there if we do the little things, which means playing a quality schedule.
No question. And then that's where I think it comes to us from a coaching standpoint of the same thing, being committed to getting our kids to play the game the right way, and coaching them and teaching them the little nuances about the game. And that for us, that's the key for us here. Is this is a constant education process that we're trying to educate these kids and get them to understand, yes, you're physically gifted, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. That just means it gives you an opportunity to be in the mix in the conversation. But now we have to challenge you from a mental standpoint, to be mentally tough, to understand the disciplines, and there's going to be some pitfalls, and how do we deal with those? And so I think, again, as we do that, and that was the one thing that our team started to develop last year, was they started to understand how this game was supposed to be played. When we beat LSU, the only thing I told them before the game was earn respect and have some fun. And that's what we did. We went out, we pitched, we threw strikes, we had quality bats, we played good defense. We didn't do anything spectacular to beat LSU. We just went out and played a really good game, as far as the game's supposed to be played. And what we did do was when we had them down on the mat, we did not let them up. They walk some guys in the first inning. We put up a 4 spot, and we never let up. And it was really, really good. Our kids were ready to celebrate, and I had to remind them, hey, this is not what our year was. We didn't come into this year saying the goal was to beat LSU. So let's not celebrate this like this is a World Series. I said, you need to act as if. And so that was the one thing the national media kind of hit me up about was, hey, man, we didn't see any, no Gatorade baths or no dog pile. Why? That our kids need to expect to win those games and be competitive in those games. And then when we come out and win, there shouldn't be a surprise. It should be, that's what we expected. But we have to put ourselves in a situation where we're going out and we're playing good baseball. And if we play good baseball and lose, well, then you tip your hat to them. They were better than us on that day. But we lose too many games because we don't play well. And so when that happens, we have to regroup our guys and tell them that's why you didn't lose because that's LSU and we're Southern. We lost because we didn't play catch. We didn't throw strikes. And you have the same capability to do those things as they do. They did it better than you today. And so now put yourself in a situation where you go out and you do it just as well as they do. And then let's see what happens.
February 14th, Southern University kicks off baseball season against UNO, Andre Dawson Classic, also on the schedule this year. Coach, we could probably go on another 30 minutes to an hour, but I respect your time and coming on today's show. We appreciate it, and we look forward to talking with you again real soon. And have a great weekend, Coach. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys having me on and helping out our programs, and you all have a good weekend as well.
Thank you, sir. That was Coach Kerrick Jackson, baseball coach at Southern University. And I kind of like that the part that he's talking about. Well, hey, defeated LSU, no dogpiling. We played well. We had them down. We kept them there. And Charles, we've had the pleasure of going to a regional before. And sometimes even in a particular game we were at, Southern's up, and then it's all of a sudden, it seems like maybe, and this is what I'm saying now, they realize that they're up, and it's 6th, 7th inning, and then it's like 10th up, and then boom. One bad inning, go to the bullpen, and they lose the ball game. So it's a bigger goal that they're trying to reach, and maybe 10 years ago, one would have laughed at saying, hey, the goal is to get to the regionals and win one. But baseball is the best opportunity.
Exactly.
To get that done.
Exactly. And look, I agree with him 100% on the schedule, and I understand why we play down, because you want your team to taste a victory. We're not winning when you're playing up, so you want to taste a victory somehow, some way, so you play down. That's what we've done in the past, and the commissioner has gone on record in saying we need to cut that down, if not cut it out. And he's kind of stepped in on football about that. He's in basketball. You're probably going to see that in the next couple of years, and limiting the number of those non-D1 games out of conference. He's not going to eliminate them, but he did tell me in an interview that I did with him recently, 1 or 2 a year. So that means you're going to be playing a quality, if it's enacted, if it's enforced, which I do think it will be in the next year or two as they're still doing the analytics of it all, you're going to have to play a quality basketball schedule across the board to help the profile of the conference. That's what Coach Jackson just said. So I agree with him. I mean, that LSU win was huge, and Southern did tighten up a little bit in that Mississippi State game. They should have won the Mississippi State game. I was there. I saw it. They should have won the game, no question. And then when you don't, it is a snowball effect the next day. You're still thinking about the previous day, and then it's a runaway train after that. But I'm impressed with what he said, how he said it, and he clearly has the right temperament, a young guy. It seemed like he's really matured and just, learning this whole thing. And I think if he continues to build it block by block, I think Southern will be fine.
They'll be fine, but I'm still thinking ahead. Why am I still thinking about those games with Texas Southern?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, boy, that was just war. Just wars. But, I think everybody's going to want to improve.
Right.
And I don't think I know. Southern's going to get everybody's best shot.
Exactly. That's the price that you're going to pay for being the champions. I guarantee you, Mike Rob's thinking about Southern right now. I guarantee you that stings, that burns his what after what happened in the tournament, because he loves to win, and it's a chess match. Southern's playing checkers. When you play Texas Southern, you're playing chess, because Mike Robb is going to move those pieces in a methodical fashion. He's not gonna do anything out of character.
Now all we got to do is, when you get an opportunity to be at that championship door, kick it in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hopefully, somebody else will learn that lesson and get it done. Get it done. Oh, there we go again, huh?
I'm anxious to see this format. If you eliminate the East and West, and now you got teams playing basically everybody. Texas teams playing the Alabama teams, which is something you don't see very often. We do play Southern. We don't play the Texas teams. We have played UAPB in the past. So it'll be interesting to see, these matchups that you don't see, if in fact, that comes to fruition if you throw out the divisions. I'm anxious to see how that will flow.
Well, we'll come back to that, because I know somebody who had an interview with Coach James, and that came up. And we have lots more to get to. We'll do that. We'll mark that down before the show is over with. But right now, I would like to take a time out, kind of transition into basketball with Coach Van Pettaway, former men's basketball coach at Alabama A&M. Get his thoughts on this conference race, midway point. We still haven't kind of talked about the passing of Kobe Bryant, but we still have time to do that. I have my thoughts on that, and basically, a colleague texted me and said, I haven't been able to confirm this, but such and such is reporting that Kobe Bryant passed away. And so everybody's trying to find out, and then eventually it happens. And I've got a great quote I'm going to give you, because some people on social media can be very brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I didn't personally meet Kobe Bryant, but watched him play. Yeah. And it's an interesting quote, why some people can never meet a person, but can feel the emotions and the pain when someone passes away. I'm a sensitive guy, Charles. I still think about my Chihuahua back in 1972, May 29th, passed away. Now, that's etched in my brain. And that's 72, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's an animal, but it's a pet.
Yeah.
And you feel, you're an emotional person, you're going to feel it. So, coming up next, Coach Van Pettaway on the Carlos Brown Show. We're going to take a quick time out. We'll be right back after this quick time out.
I present to you 3 of the fiercest subjects ever assembled in the cage of doom. First, the brain-wrenching behemoth, Algebra 2, weighing in at a mind-boggling 800 pounds. Foreign languages! The multilingual international sensation capable of tossing you clear across the Atlantic. And finally, biology. More ferocious than formaldehyde, she'll dissect you 1 chromosome at a time. Who among you will step up to their challenge?
Yeah, I'll do it. Me too. I'm in. Sign me up.
Take on the tough classes now. You need them to prepare for college. Find out which classes you need at knowhowtogo.org.
Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation for Education, and the Ad Council.
This is Al Wash with ALW Entertainment, the promoter of the State Fair Classic, and I want y'all to keep your dial, because I listen to the Open Mic Network every day. Keep the dial locked in.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Coach Van Pettaway joins me, as he does every week, basketball analyst. He analyzes everything, and I'll get that right after about the third week. Coach Pettaway, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. How's everybody? I hope everybody had a great week and everybody's recovering and getting over this tragic loss that we had last Sunday.
Well, I'm going to start off asking you about that and talk to me Sunday. I may be feeling even better if the Jaguars can hold off Alcorn State, a hot three-point shooting team. But we'll get to that. But the passing of Kobe Bryant, boy, everyone that I talked to, they have been really emotional about it, and they felt it this past week.
Well, yeah, that was tough. I mean, because of who Kobe is, and then you add in the fact that those children were involved. So I think it was I think that's why it struck home so much for a lot of people. And then, with Kobe and what he's meant to basketball, and then not just men's basketball, how he tried to highlight women's basketball and making things equal for everybody. I think he was great for the game of basketball. And I'm all about people who are into basketball and want to play it and do it the right way, and he certainly did that.
Yeah, and I know we focusing a lot on Kobe and his daughter, but also the other people involved in the helicopter crash. Our thoughts and prayers go to those families as well, because that's a tough situation. And Dr. Robert Namer, his quote is this: "Grief is the tax we pay for loving." Wow. And when we love someone greatly, whether we know them personally or not, we will also grieve them correspondingly. Yep. So for those who say, hey, I didn't know, I never met Kobe Bryant, but you saw him play basketball, yeah, and you think of his work ethic, the Black Mamba mentality, yep, and the same fierceness you saw on the court and always learning and trying to get better. He was also doing that post basketball in his business adventure. So, just tragic situation, and you got to live for today, and always remember that, because tomorrow's not promised.
That's true.
But tough situation with Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and everyone else involved in that horrific crash. God rest their souls, and hopefully peace eventually will come to their loved ones left behind eventually. But that's a tough situation. That's a tough situation.
And love and peace to all families involved. Yep.
Yeah. And now you see what the new social media craze now. Dads are taking pictures with their daughters, and they say, "Tell them you love them," and you can tell them that every day.
Right. Right. And see, I think the thing is, a lot of us who have daughters, I've got two, we were already doing that. I went to my daughter's games. I had her play with the same passion. The passion that you saw me coach with, that's the same passion I had my daughter to play with. So she was a beast on the floor, and all that led her to was only thing that we try to tell them is what Kobe's trying to. No matter what you do your best.
Yeah.
And I don't want to brag, but I had two girls that went through college. One of them made one during her lifetime. She never made a B. She never made a B because she applied herself. The other one, she made a B in high school. Guess what it was in? Driver's ed. She already had a license.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I think his message, the Mamba message, is whatever you do your best, and that's the way we brought up our kids, our children. in this house.
Yes,
And
sir.
so I think that's the legacy to me that Kobe leaves. And you don't look over anybody. And to me, that's where it comes in, where he gave his all to women's sports.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't just basketball. Now, you think about it. You saw Kobe at soccer matches. You saw him at the Olympics. You saw him at women's tennis. He did it all. So you don't overlook anybody. But whatever you do it at your best. And then you live with the results. And if the results are not what you want, then doggone it, you get back in there and you do better. You work harder. And that's what he was saying.
And a word to the wise. And speaking of working and getting better, that's a perfect chance to segue into coach this Southern University basketball team. Here's my problem with this. Here's my problem. This talking to some colleagues and friends, they were like, "Oh, here we go again, 0-3." They start off, and I said, "Well, they played Texas Southern Prairie View.
Yep,
and they played them even in the second half. Prairie View lost by 9 to Texas Southern, and if you look at it, Grambling State, they were up by 11 and couldn't finish and hadn't lost since then. And I'm talking about next year is going to be their year. And then I said this year, finishing, even if you can get fourth, that's a home game in the tournament. But all that to say this, they continued to work hard and they didn't give up.
Yep.
And now they're in the thick of things in the conference.
I told you from day one, don't give up on them. Don't sleep on them.
Mm-hmm.
It's too early in the year.
And the same with Alcorn State, 9th. They picked 9th in the men's and the women's, and they're in the thick of it, much better than, on paper, prognosticators, they get their predictions, but we all know it's won on the court.
Oh, yes.
And lost. And both teams, if you look at on the women's side, Coach, who's hot and who's not. Jackson State still undefeated, 8-game winning streak. Texas Southern on a 3-game winning streak. Southern on a
and Southern has a 4-game winning streak.
Yeah.
Prairie View has won 2 in a row. So it's too early, and see, you can forget about all that preseason stuff, because no one knows what's in those kids' hearts and what's in their minds, and that's what counts. That's what wins games. The makeup of your team and that the hearts and minds of your team is very important.
And which team can bounce back from adversity?
Correct.
Because everybody's on your side when you're winning. You go off on a 5-game winning streak, then you come up and lose 2 in a row. Oh, there they go again. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you try to be, balanced, Charles, with all of this. But on the women's side, it's still some games to be played, but some tremendous battles ahead and positioning for seeding.
One of the things that I'm looking at, Coach Pettaway, just watching all these games, is that you don't have the prolific scoring on either side of the ledger this year that you've had in years past. Back in the day, it was the Obie Trotters of the world. You know about Obie Trotter.
The
Lindsey Hunter, the Lindsey Hunters of the world, the McKnights on the men's side. You don't have that. You've got Caleb Hunter, who's one of the top scorers in the conference, the son of head coach Lindsey Hunter. It seems to me that the conference now has become a big man and a defensive-minded conference. If you look at the games last week, the Braves won 2 games, scoring 59 points and 63 points. I think the game against Southern today is going to be kind of the same way. Are you detecting a trend? Is defense now ruling the day in both men's and women's sides? Because you don't see a lot of high-scoring games these days.
Right. I think the defense has gotten better, but another thing that has affected all of college basketball, the reason why scoring is down, there's an offense called a dribble drive. So if you're dribbling, you're not shooting it. So you're not putting up the points. You're not putting up the points. See, no. I don't want to dribble that thing. Put it in the air. How you gonna win the game if it doesn't go in the basket? Put that thing in the air, man. So now I'm serious. That offense has brought down the scoring in college basketball. The dribble drive teams, they don't average a lot of points. You look at what everybody's talking about, Virginia's great defense. Yeah, they got great defense when they hold the ball for 32 seconds. They don't have to defend as often because they're in possession of the ball, and they're doing it out of dribble drive. So Charles, you're right. Now you get you one big man in that post. When that clock is running down, you either have dropped it off you have driven the basketball, you're shooting the floater, or you've dropped it off to that post player. And so you got more in the SWAC now. You got more balanced scoring. You look at it. You got 2 or 3 kids on the same team in double digit scoring. A lot of times you didn't have that. So you got the balance. Yep. You got defense, and you got the dribble drive. That's what has brought the offense, the scoring averages down.
Well, our coach Montez Robinson said the other day that even though we've got good guards in this league, he's seeing more development of big men in this league, something that we hadn't really talked about in years past.
Yep, that's true. That's true. They're coming on. Post players, they normally, their skill level takes longer to develop than the guards. And so a lot of times when we get them, they're not polished, but the coaches are working. They have more time now because now you got summer workouts. You got workouts after the season that we didn't have before. So they are developing more talent. There's a lot of great coaching going on in this league.
Yep.
Coach, let me ask you about traditionally, you can go back to the 80s and the 90s. You had some outstanding post players, but now some of the post players, they're more like set a pick, then they pop. They pick and pop. Do you see more of that, or are you more of a traditionalist? I think I may know the answer to this. Of a post player that just gets down in that box, demands the ball, and knows what to do with it when he gets it. And 2, he can still, if he gets doubled, he has become a good passer. Do you see that trend coming back, or is it going to just be still kind of the big man sets a screen, then he moves out and can hit the 15, 16-footer?
Well, you got the pick and pop game is coming because that's what they're doing in AAU now. Every 6'10", 6'11" kid, they're learning to play at a guard spot because that's what everybody else is doing. See, everybody wants to be Kevin Durant. Everybody Garnett started it. He's the first big person that played away from the basket when Kevin Garnett went into the NBA. So everybody's patterning themselves after some of those guys. You don't see the Shaqs anymore because nobody wants to be Shaq. They don't want to be that. They want to, everybody wants to play on the perimeter. They want to be a finesse player. I would take a back to the basket, dominant center any day. I would.
That's what I thought you would say.
Because number one, my guards and forwards, they would anything that they can't put up, he gonna clean it up. I want him cleaning it up for me. Then if they slow us down, we got to play half court. Now we coming into you, big guy. Now it's time to go to work. And then all I want you to do is be able to get that basketball out and start my break. Get that ball out of the basket. I taught it to where you got penalized if you let the ball hit the floor coming out the net. you had to get that thing out, man. We coming. And that's just the way I coached it. That's the way I played it. I like the up tempo style of, a lot of times people are giving Duke and all these people credit. No, man, they were playing. We in the SWAC, in the SIC, we were playing that form of basketball since day one. Coach McClendon, you go back to the days, man, we were up tempo before there was ever. They didn't even know what up tempo was. In fact, they didn't call it up tempo. They called it run and gun. That's what the other people called it. It was run and gun. Now it's up tempo. They just give it a nicer name. and that's all it is.
And then you would find out, the opponent would find out what kind of conditioning they were in.
Right.
And I'm listening to Coach Petaway. I'm thinking about Coach Ben Joe.
Yep, right.
He said, give me 90 shots. What was it, 100 shots? 90 shots?
No. You say Coach Joe said, if you give him 93 shots, he gonna win 90% of his game.
I'll give him 7 more, 100. Yeah. Yep. But I just wondered because I've talked to some old school guys that said a lot of times the guards. He said he could take 6'6" across the board. A point guard 6'6" at the 2, small forwards that can rebound.
Yes, if they're athletic and they're tough, yeah, you can win on collegiate level like that. And you know this weekend, you know the Houston Rockets just did that.
Yeah,
in the NBA, the
night.
Houston Rockets won a pro game without playing anybody over 6'6". They spreaded people out. They shot the basketball. Yeah, you got to the basket. They got to the basket on those big guys. See, it can be done, especially on the collegiate level now.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Well, I mean, he's exactly right, because we have a kid 7 foot right now, Lonzo Campbell, who has struggled, gets in early foul trouble, and I've heard our coach say we go to the smaller lineup, we spread everybody out, we're a little bit more effective.
Yep.
And I think most coaches are doing it now.
Right, and then when you talk about offense, one of the great legends was Coach Whitney. Coach Whitney, he put points on the board. He wasn't holding that ball. He played tough defense, and they scored. They didn't hold the ball like they're doing now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to add on to what you're talking about, a few years ago, talking to some Southern fans, the guy Southern won. I think like maybe the score, I forget who the opponent was, but maybe like 61-57, and he looked like he was sad. I was like, Southern won. I said, yeah, but it wasn't exciting. I'd rather lose in the game be exciting. And I looked at, and he said, why you had that amazing look on your face? I was like, no, I just have to think about that one.
Yeah.
They won, but he was saying even if Southern had lost, he misses the excitement. And he was talking about the Frankie J. Sanders and the Avery Johnsons and the up-tempo. So it's interesting, the styles of play. But back to the women's standing, Jackson State, 7-0, 8-game winning streak. Texas Southern 6-1, Southern 6-2, Alcorn State 5-3, Alabama A&M 4-3, Prairie View A&M 2-game winning streak 3-4, Alabama State 2-5, UAPB 2-5, Grambling State 1-6, Valley 0-8. Coach Pettaway, put you on the spot, sir. Although you can't really put Coach Pettaway on the spot. Jackson State. Should they? I don't think they're even thinking about going undefeated in conference. They want to get that number one spot. Will they be able to do it, you believe?
Well, yeah, I think if they remain healthy and they remain focused, they can do it. I mean, they're 7-0, so they're one more game, and they would have made the swing. So it's possible, but in this day and time, everybody can have an off night. So if they have an off night, they could go down. But I'm pulling for them. I like to see undefeated teams in the conference.
Well, the RPI for the conference. Remember, Charles, we talked about that before. It's so much pressure until the conference gets elevated in those type of numbers. You literally have to go undefeated or no more than one loss or two. And that's, Coach, now to me, the non-coach here, that's a lot of pressure. But some people love that kind of pressure.
Well, it is, but I'm going to tell you one of the things that has helped now with coaches going to postseason play. Now that the NIT and the women's NIT is involved, if your conference champion was to slip up in the conference tournament, they still get, they still go to postseason play. But I don't think we'll ever, until they stop all these non-conference massacres, our RPI is not going to move up because we're playing too many destruction games in the preseason. In order to get our conference RPI up, we got to play a more balanced schedule. And by that, I mean play more mid-major schools versus playing the Power 5 schools. At one point back when Coach Joe was at Southern his first time around, they did that thing. I've told you all this before. There was a moratorium. You can only play 2 of those kind of games. But if you tell that now, man, these ADs some of them end up in the hospital if you tell them they couldn't play with two games like that.
Or out of a job.
Yeah,
right. That's why they end up in the hospital, because they know they'll be out of a job.
well, the other thing, Coach, I interviewed the commissioner a few weeks ago, and he says that the presidents have given his office the charge of coming up with a template in which you talk about playing too many of those guarantee games, but we also play the non-D1 games. We know what those are, the NAIAs, the Lady of the Lakes and the Toogaloos and those type of. He wants to not eliminate but drastically reduce those type of games, the non-D1s, because it doesn't help the profile of the conference. What do you think about?
Let me tell you how I compare that. When we play these Power Fives, we are the D2 schools. We are we the underdogs. So see, I don't. From that standpoint, I say yes, because those games don't count. The NC2A allows you to play 4 of them on your schedule, right? But it doesn't count in the RPI. But as a coach now, it helps your record. So that's going to be a tough one. I wish they do legislate the Power 5 games. I don't think we should be playing as many as we play. Man, you're demoralizing your kids when you play 14 and 15 games like that. Well, you taking them into the games, unless you got a great team, you're not going to win a lot of those games or any of them. And so your kids don't know how to win when it comes down to conference play. So you roll into the conference 0-14, unless you got a super team or you got veterans like what Texas Southern was doing when Mike was there, where they had all those veterans, grad transfers. The grad transfers had already won at the places they transferred from, so they knew how to win. And that's why he was successful in the conference. That, the experience, and they were more talented than a lot of the teams that were in the league. So legislating how many games, I think, would be great for the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
I like the word you use, balance.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that word, balance, because, somebody was laughing when they said I said 2 and 10 won't get them in. Talking about the non-conference games when the conference schedule starts. Sometimes the fans are demoralized.
Right.
The team is 1-13, and you understand why they do it, but you don't like it. But it's too many. I agree with Coach Pettaway. Too many of them, and I won't use some of the other language that I've heard about sometimes how ADs are just a little bit too nice with getting those type of games. But hopefully at the end of the day, it'll be some balance. And
right.
And that's what I would look at, Coach.
Now, you do know that Coach Joe, you know what he used now, the phrase he used. He said we were prostituting our kids. And that's Coach Joe. Now, that's quote from Coach Joe. Yeah, that's not Van Pettaway, because I think in this day and age you have to be careful about what you say. But when I asked him, I said, Coach, you can't say that now. And he'll say, hey man, I'm 80 years old. I say what I want to say. But no, he was like that when he was coaching, when he was in the SWAC. He didn't believe in that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because look at it this way. Some of those schools put more money into their basketball program than some of the SWAC schools put in their entire athletic budget. Yeah. So now tell me how those are not apples. Those are not apples and apples. Those are apples and oranges. So it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work. Yeah, every now and then we get lucky and we beat one of them. But on a consistent basis, no, we're not going to win those games.
Yeah,
they're bringing us there to make their record better. And then you got to think about this. Remember 2 years ago, the SEC, they put something in. If your RPI was lower than I think what it was, if you were 300 in the 300s, they couldn't play you.
Mm-hmm.
Now that would eliminate all 90% of the SWAC schools. That means that they couldn't. Those 2 years ago, they couldn't play them unless your RPI was under 300.
Well, and I think you said before last year, and I'll step out on the limb and say this, I think Southern fans probably would like to see an Austin T. Or mid-majors, what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Well, yeah, I look at those. Grandma has a victory against Southeastern
Louisiana Monroe.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Those are the schools we should be loading up with.
Mm-hmm.
Not Duke, not Connecticut, not we don't need to be in the Power Five. We don't need to be running up to Michigan and Michigan State.
Kentucky.
Oh, thank you.
No. Balance, mid-majors, and I know Coach Floyd Kerr. I call him Coach Floyd Kerr. We had a discussion once before, former Southern AD. You have a couple of games if you got a strong or a big alumni base, say like in Dallas.
Right.
Yeah, you would try to play a game, over there,
Yeah. Well, I'll share a story with you, Coach. One year we played Kansas in Lawrence at Allen Fieldhouse. They were the number one team in the country at the time.
I know how this is going to end. But
we led 4-0 early. Every network broke away to see Alcorn lead Kansas 4-0 early. The first 3 minutes of the game. You know what happened after that, Carlos? They scored 36 in a row.
Wow.
They led 36-4.
Not 40? Okay.
The NCAA record for the most consecutive was 37.
Wow.
So I mean that was tough. I mean,
yep.
And so that kind of goes to your point how tough that is. I mean, Allen Fieldhouse is one of the toughest places to play in college basketball. I mean, no question about that. And we played Wichita State and Kansas on that same swing, so we got a couple of good paychecks out the deal.
Right. Right.
As you talk about coming out of there with some sort of feel good for playing those two games, that is tough.
Right. And I think when you talk about balance, instead of playing 14 consecutive games on the road, bring those kids home. Let them play a home game. If you look back over the history of our schedules, I never scheduled more than 4 games in a row on the road. Never. Because I thought that was disrespectful to my kids. And I wanted to give my kids as much confidence as possible. And then, in them home games, I play the school of the blind. I don't care, man. I need my kids to win and know what winning is.
Get a taste of victory.
Yep.
A&M used to play Oakwood. Oakwood is in Huntsville, isn't it, Coach?
Right, NAI. Yep.
And the gym was packed.
It's sellout crowd.
It's a sellout crowd at the Elmore Oakwood. What are they? NAIA? What are they?
Yep. Right. They were NAIA back there. I don't know what they are now. They're in a Christian league now.
Yeah.
Christians, come on.
But that gym was packed when they played Oakwood. It was a traditional thing.
Right. And then if we played the school across town, University of Alabama Huntsville, that's a sellout. So see, our game. Well, really, to be honest with you, if we brought in anybody, most of the time we were gonna fill it up. So that's what we looked at. And when I talked to my administration at the time, I told them, I said, we need some confidence going in our conference schedule. I cannot schedule, and I will not schedule. I scheduled double-digit games one time, and that was to get some renovations done. We had a president, Dr. Jennings. Yep. Dr. Jennings allowed us to use the guarantee money to redo our downstairs of Elmore, and that's the only thing that's been done since.
Yeah.
And so I agreed to play more games to bring in money, and we used every dime that we brought in to renovate downstairs. And he was the only president that ever allowed us to use guarantee money for anything dealing with basketball. And see, that's the other thing. In our league now, unless it's changed, Texas Southern was the first school to do that, where they allowed the basketball, some of the game guarantees to go back into the program. To me, that's why Texas Southern went to the top of the conference and stayed there. Okay? Some of the other schools, I think some of them now are doing some form of that, but nothing like Texas Southern.
Right.
Yep.
Interesting.
And what he's saying about renovating the bottom half of Elmore, I think that was a time in which there was discussions about building a new arena at A&M.
Right.
And I think the president at the time, I don't know if If it was the
I
state that
often
came,
wondered why they, would there ever be a new arena? But
well, there was a push, but I think the president was either told by the higher ups that wasn't going to happen. It wasn't enough money, and they had to renovate Elmore, and that's where it is right now. The lower section is renovated with seats, but I think they've I don't want to say condemned, but the upper deck, some of the upper deck they're not using anymore. But there was a push to get a new arena there at A&M. I don't know where it is now, but what Coach is talking about, I do remember that.
I know.
Well, it's still in the talking stages. Yeah, it's still in the talking stages, and yes, they did condemn the upstairs, and that's why they removed all the bleachers up there.
Right.
And they've gone back with just two rows of seats upstairs. So that really has brought their seat capacity down. But right now that's why they had to play Alabama State on a neutral site in Birmingham. Yeah. Because they would not have been able to accommodate the crowd.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of things that administration. But I tell you this, this is the first time I've ever heard that the presidents have gotten involved and are talking about coming up with a model. That's a step in the right direction. The basketball coaches ought to be happy.
We're visiting with Coach Van Pettaway, former men's basketball coach at Alabama A&M. Now we're going to quickly look on the men's side, and I have my little segment, who's hot and who's not. I can't remember who it was that's why I didn't include Prairie View. So Prairie View on a 4-game winning streak. Texas Southern on a 5-game winning streak. Alcorn on a 5-game winning streak. Southern on a 5-game winning streak. Wow.
So all that means is some of these streaks got to come to an end because they got to play each other.
Hashtag somebody's streak is going to end. For personal reasons, I hope Southerners don't, but sorry about that, Charles. Prairie View A&M 6-1, Texas Southern 6-1, Alcorn 6-2, Southern 5-3. But Alcorn and Southern, the game of the week.
Yeah.
In my opinion, today, Coach.
Yep.
Now, me and Charles kind of been texting. Alcorn State, this season, there's not a 3-point opportunity that they don't like. They'll let it fly from off the bus. Now, I'll be watching today. Southern field goal percentage against a 3-point is tops, I believe, in the conference. So, to me, simply put, I'm going to force Alcorn to do something else besides shooting threes. Is that easier said than done, Coach?
Well, I think it is. I mean, if that's their offense, then yeah, it's going to be more difficult. But they need to look at last weekend. Alcorn State beat Alabama State by 1, and then they turn around and they beat A&M by 1, and then they turn around and beat Alabama State by 3. So if you can slow them down, you can stay in the game. So that has to be in somewhere in their game, in Southern's game plan. They got to try to slow them down so that they can be in the game, and you can neutralize those threes by slowing it down.
Excuse me, Coach. Southern's number 1 in the conference in points given up defensively, and they're number 1 in 3-point percentage defensively. So I think it's a battle of wills. The Braves like to shoot the 3. Southern likes to defend the 3.
Defend the 3. Yep.
So we'll see which wills win out.
Well, Will will find a way. Way will. But a 3-point shot, though, you live and die by it. And, defense has to be constant, right? Offense sometimes comes and goes. And then tempo. So I'm thinking all of those things we were talking about. Southern, even last year, you always talked about defensively, they were pretty good. And they played very hard. Those are 2 adjectives to describe the team. Offensively, they couldn't finish or they'd have these droughts. Kind of like Alcorn's women. 2 or 3 minutes not scoring any points.
Yeah.
Football, we say defense wins championships. But in basketball, that's true, but you still got to be able to put the ball in the hole.
Right, but see, here's one of the other things that, to me, that Alcorn has in their favor. They're 10 3-pointers per game. That's 13th in the nation. And then, of course, the steals. they're still in the basketball too. So they got active hands. So they're shooting the ball on one end, and they're being very active on the defensive end. So to me, that goes in their favor.
Well,
they've got a great chance.
Well, I'll share this, Coach. Against A&M, we had a guy named Kobe Wilson, which he's about 6'9", 6'10", skinny as a rail. They don't run any offense through him. He was 0 for 3 from beyond the arc. He made a big three in the A&M game, which helped him win that game. We had to defend late to win that game. We got a key block against Bama State in the last 2 minutes. Had to get a stop late. So the Braves can score points, but the last couple of games it's been about defense.
Right.
In other words,
and Charles,
play defense when need be.
Right. And see, Charles, before we were on air, I was trying to say I really wanted to hear that game, and I guess it was on my end. I could not get the sound right. I could not hear you, so I tried to. I stayed on the edge of my seat. I tried to do sidearm. That didn't work, so it was just tough for me. I had to wait until I guess almost 11 o'clock for me to get a box score. So that was a good game going down the stretch.
Yeah. We have had some audio issues with our stream that we are working through, so that is on.
Okay.
Or listen to the open mic or our website WPRL.org, or we're on TuneIn Radio. You can listen to that as well. And I also post the post game interviews too, so you can hear what Coach has to say on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, right. That's good because we've been having some exciting SWAC basketball, and I'm gonna tell you something. I think the second half is gonna be better than, in my opinion, the second half is gonna be better than the first half.
Well, I was telling Carlos this last night, Coach. I mean, the Texas teams head to Alabama. There's no guarantees that the Texas team's going to come out of Alabama State and A&M with 2 wins. I think that's going to be. I mean, the way State's been playing, a couple of close losses. You know, the Jackson State game, they were down 19. They were down against Southern. They were down against us. Bama State, I think, might be setting themselves up for a good second half run, and the athleticism of A&M playing in the Elmore Gym, that's always a challenge.
Right, and I was talking to Coach Jackson a couple of weeks ago before the A&M game, and he was talking about he hopes that we can get back to where it was. If you wanted to win the SWAC, you had to win Alabama. In other words, coming into Alabama for the teams, if you even had thoughts of winning the SWAC championship, you had to come through the state of Alabama to win in order to win the SWAC championship. So he feels that his team can make a late run, and then, like you said, with A&M, with their athleticism, they should be able to play better at home.
Well, it's going to be some tremendous games in the second half. Kind of looking at some of the scores from last week, and at one point, the away teams won all of a week ago.
That was week before last. The away team was 9-0 on the road. Yep. Had that happened before?
I
probably did, but it's been a while. If it did.
Well, I texted Andrew Roberts the other day, the SWAC media relations director. He said he will look it up. That's going to require some work and some time to go back and look through that. But he'll give us an answer on that. But I think that if there's nothing else, Coach Pettaway, to me, that verifies how wide open this league is this year on the men's side, that stat right there shows it. That the road teams won Saturday and Monday. That shows you how wide open that this thing could be down the stretch. I mean, I think Bama State could be a spoiler in terms of knocking a team out of the 4th spot. Maybe even Jackson State. I think Jackson State saved their season with the win over Grambling last week. Grambling's probably the more disappointing team to me, and they started out 3-0 and hadn't won a game since. Right.
I agree, Charles. I agree. This is I think it's wide open, even though Texas Southern and Prairie View are up there on the men's side. But I think Alcorn still you all still got a lot to say about who's going to win this SWAC title. I think Coach Jackson's going to have them guys ready down the stretch. And that's why I say I'm looking forward to a great turn. You know, today ends the first round, the first half of it, and then going down the stretch, every game is going to be on, the coaches are going to be on pins and needles. They're going to need it because The only sure thing in the conference right now is on the women's side, and that's Jackson State because they've got the largest lead. Well, it's only a one-game lead. Only one game over Texas Southern, but that's the only the women. I think that they don't have as much parity as it is on the men's side.
Well, I'll say this about Jackson State, Coach Pettaway. Just seeing them, they play 12 or 13 players. They're deep.
Wow.
And I think their matchups are tough for other teams because they can go small, they can go big, they can go in between. They can go any way you want to go. You want to match up big, they can do that. You want to go small, they can do that. And I think, clearly the overtime win over Texas Southern kind of elevated their confidence. I mean, that was a game that they should have lost, that they wound up pulling out at home in overtime. So I think Jackson State, just the bodies, the matchup, the system that they have, young coach, I think they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. But you got Texas Southern and Southern on their heels. And if the Lady Braves win, we got to go to Jackson next week. And Jackson's got to go to Valley and Pine Bluff. I mean, those are two gyms that are never easy to win in, regardless of what the home team's record is.
Now, Charles, wouldn't you say on the women's side that probably Grambling is the most disappointing team?
Yeah, but when you lose Hill, it's like on the men's side, to me, there are two men's teams that are disappointing to me. My alma mater, Grambling, after starting out 3-0, they've fallen off the table. But then UAPB, probably even more disappointing. But you can expect it though because they lost McKnight, they lost Trent Steen. I mean, Steen was a horse in the paint, Carlos. Right. He was one of the top 15 scorers in the country. When you lose those two, and George Ivory can recruit, he can recruit better than anyone in this league. It's going to take a little time to get some of that back. He probably won't, but he's got the pieces, but they just all don't fit right now. So I would say on the women's side, it has been disappointing to a certain extent. But the second half of the season, you teams scout, teams prepare for you, and I do think things will change. I think Jackson will win at Pine Bluff and at Valley. But then, they got to go to Alabama, which is going to be tough. Alcorn comes in there next Saturday. We can turn teams over. So I think that'll be an interesting game as well.
Oh, yeah. And I still think that Jackson State, Texas Southern, they'll have to go to Texas.
Yes.
That's going to be huge. I know there's games that have to be played before then. But Jackson State picked, and here we go again, picked second.
Yeah.
They're first. So pretty much, I think the prognosticators were accurate on that. Southern picked first. Right now, they're in third.
Yeah, right.
I think there's still pressure there. Although they have the pieces in place, there's still pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, you pick first, and you still have some room to make up. Next week is going to be crucial. They'll get a chance to go to Jackson and Grambling, and guess what? That is not going to be an easy game.
No,
I've seen Coach Peel go into Grambling with teams of equal value or better than this one, and come away with the loss. It's a rival game, and I don't know. Maybe I got to dig and see if there's something else going on with Grambling women. I know you lost Miss Quadruple, but I didn't expect the fall to be that much.
Right. But when everything, to me, Coach Pettaway, when everything was running through her offensively, I mean, she's a quadruple double machine, scoring, assists, steals, when all isn't nearly as dynamic as it once was. Now, they won a couple in a row, kind of got back on track, but when you lose a lot of arsenal offensively, then you've got to see what you've got coming behind that. And I think either that or your defense has to be better. I think Prairie View's defense is okay, but they just don't have a punch, Carlos. They just don't have the same Sandy Pugh punch on offense that we're accustomed to seeing when they lost what they lost last year.
Well, I've seen
unless they have somebody hurt now because I thought that during the recruiting process, if I know I'm going to lose my top two scorers in my recruiting process, I'm getting scores. I'm not going to try to develop. If I got a kid that was averaging 6 points a game last year on the team, on the bench, I don't expect that person to be a double-digit scorer the next year. So during the recruiting process, I would be trying to replace my scores. So unless she brought them in and they're hurt, and I wouldn't know that. So that could be part of it too. Oh yeah, underperform. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, they all that's a big thing with kids nowadays. They do underperform.
Well, it's going to be interesting to follow the second half of both conference seasons, both on the women and the men's side. I can simply say this: sometimes it's so competitive. One loss can drop you 2 or 3 spots.
Yep.
Like a win could give you an advantage, but you just want to be consistent, play well, and improve every game. And I always say this: who can handle adversity if it hits? And I say if, but usually it does. Who can respond? Who can get it done when you have a setback? You don't want to find out too much about that, Charles, but you want to be consistently win. Coach, we appreciate the time as always. Who you like Super Bowl tomorrow?
Well, my heart is in San Francisco, but I want Kansas City to win because of Coach Reed and Coach Reed and of course Mahomes. So I'm gonna pull for Kansas City.
The heart says KC, but it sounds like the mind is saying, "Whoo, that's San Francisco."
No. My heart is saying San Francisco. Ever since Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, I was a 49ers. I like them, but I like the coach, man. Anytime you put 20 years in your craft, on the sentimental side, I want Coach Reed to win. I want him to get him one.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying I'm pulling for Kansas City. And then he's got one of the most dynamic players at the quarterback spot that we have in the NFL. So that's the other reason why I'm pulling for Kansas City.
Well, I don't like the 49ers because they're in the division with my favorite team, the Rams. So I could care less about the 49ers. But I am pulling for Coach Reed. I totally agree. He's one of the nicest guys in the NFL. You don't hear a negative thing about him. They kind of tossed him on his ear in Philly, and he's proven that he can get up off the deck and do it again. And he probably should have been in the Super Bowl last year. If it wasn't for a call at the end there against New England, he probably would have been. So, yeah, I think a lot of people, from a sentimental perspective, are pulling for Andy Reid more so than anything.
At least they got back after a bad call.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, the Saints never recuperated.
As someone sent me a post, a great regular season team. A playoff team, no. On that note, Coach, enjoy yourself. We will,
thank you, man. We'll watch the Texas two-step this weekend. Okay.
All right. Appreciate it, Coach.
All right, guys. Have a great week.
All right. That was Coach Van Pettaway, former men's basketball coach at Alabama. And let me do some maintenance right quick. Had a couple of responses. Also, a listener says, how do we find Charles' post-game interviews?
You can find them on my Facebook page. I'm on Facebook, Charles Edmond, and I'm on Twitter, Tallman Radio. I post those interviews right after they're done, within minutes after the game. I interview our women's coach at the half of the men's game. I try to post that right afterwards. Sometimes it's not right afterwards. I got to type it up and process it. It may be end of the second half of the men's game by the time it's up. But definitely the men's game, I post those interviews on my Facebook and Twitter pages after the game so folks can go back and check it out and listen to them.
Men's scores from last week. Saturday, January 25th. Just want to make sure. Nope, this is women's. Okay. Want to get that right, Charles. Saturday, January. Well, women should go chivalry, not dead. At least it isn't supposed to be. Last Saturday, Alabama A&M, tough team, over Alcorn State 74-67. It was Southern over Alabama State 69-47. Some calls now for Frida Jackson maybe to to start maybe getting ready to think of life after basketball? Charles Sickens said, not yet.
Nah.
That's one thing about you, Charles. You are long to the end.
Too much cachet built.
AD, people would love you as AD.
Too much cachet built. I mean, yeah, she's had her struggles, just like Lewis Jackson has had his struggles, but their fixtures there, they probably can leave whenever they get ready. I know there's probably a little bit of heat, but they're not going. I don't think they're going to be let go. I think if anything, one or both might decide, you know what, it's been fun, y'all, and they may decide to go out together, you know, at the same time. Who knows? But I don't any tossing them out on their ear. I don't see it happening.
Jackson State over Grambling State, 61-46. Prairie View A&M over UAPB, 61-51, and it was Texas Southern by 30 over Mississippi Valley State, 88-58. Then you move to that tough Monday. Always tough on a Monday, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Monday.
Broadcasters too. It's tough for me on a Monday.
Yeah, the second half, and you're tired, and you got to push through.
Yeah.
Prairie View A&M all over Valley State, 81-47. It was Texas Southern, Coach Brown at UAPB. Texas Southern, a 1-point victory. Now, stop right there. You always hear 18 to 22-year-old student athletes. Texas Southern, from the outside looking in, perhaps overconfident, didn't take the game seriously, not to take a shot at UAPB. They play that game 10 times. It's 10 wins for Texas Southern, and they are double-digit wins.
Mm-hmm.
But a 1-point victory. No sense to be alarmed, right?
Yeah. If I'm Johnny Jones, that is concerning. Now on Monday nights, you know, I know coaches in this league don't take.
No, this is women.
Oh, I'm sorry, women. If I'm Cynthia Cooper, and you got to give. I tell you what, that's right. You got to give Don Brown's team a little bit of credit for continuing to fight, because they were down big in that game, and then make a game of it the last 5 or 6 minutes. You got to give Don Brown's team a little bit of credit, and I'm sure for Cynthia Cooper, she probably lit into her team and said, hey, if you think that you can go to Alabama and play this way, taking your foot off the gas, you're going to come back with 2 L's. So I kind of expect Texas Southern to, to bounce back a little bit over there. They just have a team that can score some points. They can shoot the threes. They can play quick. They've got a couple of 6'3" bigs who are twin sisters that are going to be really good in this league over a period of time. So, but you know, that's clearly, I think, in that game, the Monday night blues. But you got to give UAP and Dawn Brown credit, a lot of pride and a lot of fight. I think she's going to be good for that program there.
You know, the future. We'll revisit this in a couple of years and see if there's any progress. Southern over Alabama A&M 55-46. Tough ball game for the women Jaguars. Down at the half. The fourth quarter, the big difference. Yep. They were able to pull it out. Southern
19-9, I think they outscored them 19-9 in the fourth.
Yeah, and defensively, they got after it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's going to be very interesting to see the game today. Both teams, I think, are good defensively.
Mm-hmm.
You know, points at a premium, you say? Yeah, sometimes when defensive teams get together, it can, offensively, it could be not a good show. But then they may surprise us, come out hitting threes all over the place. You never know. That's what happened on the women's side as far as in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Now let me pull up the men's. So Grambling State, both men and women, disappointing. But then you have teams that are playing above expectations. We kind of talked about Southern and Alcorn State based on the predictions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Grambling's men is probably the big mystery to me, probably more than any team on both sides, because they typically, and they started out 3-0. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if it's attitudes. You just don't know. But for them to fall off the page like they have, is really, you know, as a Grambling grad myself, it's kind of disturbing, because this is a team that typically plays with a lot of poise, with confidence, not cocky, and maybe they just don't have the playmakers right now, or maybe they may be banged up. That's kind of the mystery team for me on both sides. How Grambling has fallen, off the cliff a little bit.
But I think they'll be ready next weekend.
Southern University,
and then all that Monday.
We struggle over there at the Hobby Arena for some reason. Grambling, and you're exactly right. Grambling plays at a whole nother level at home, and it's just the crowd gets into it. The dancing in the stands. I mean, it's a great scene on a Monday night. They draw well over there, and Grambling to me, Carlos, is going to be two spoilers in terms of getting a home game in the first round. I think Bama State and Grambling and Jackson State are going to be the three spoilers that's going to make it tough for a team like Alcorn and Southern to get a home game second half of the season. Those three teams could elevate themselves and put themselves in position, and they can make it tough for the Braves and Southern to get a fourth spot, because we got to go to Bama on the last road trip of the regular season. And then you got Jackson coming up. So it's, things could change in the next 9 days in this league in terms of, are we on the outside looking in terms of a home game? It's good to say that instead of saying a year ago, we're just trying to make the tournament, because that's kind of where we were last year. We're just struggling to try to make the top 8. Now we're talking about a home game. So, I mean, it's a good conversation to have, but
it's so competitive. That's why I said earlier, you could drop 2 spots.
That's right.
And for if you lose the ball game, what happens if you lose 2 in a row? My goodness. And then you think about it, Southern still has to go on that 3-game road trip in the Alabamas and then Alcorn.
And we're starting ours today.
Yeah, and then you go to then you got Texas Southern Prairie View at home. That's going to be tough. So, yeah, you got to take it one game at a time, because again, a loss, you go on a losing streak at the wrong time, that could be it.
You could literally drop a spot every game you lose.
And then you're on the road for the first round, the quarterfinals, or you're not in a tournament at all.
Yeah.
Now, that would mean a complete collapse. But I don't think Southern's in a position where they can expect to just – they're doing well now, but they can go from the penthouse to the house very quickly.
Yeah. Well, I think, I talked with our assistant coaches this week, and they were saying, man, we really need to go to first half 7-2. And if we win, obviously we would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because 7-2, 6-3, 7-2, you got a little bit of wiggle room in the back end, because we know how tough it's going to be. 6-3, you don't have as much wiggle, like you said, you don't have as much wiggle room to play with when you're 6-3. You still got to go to Alabama State and A&M. You still got 2 games on the road at Jackson and at Grambling.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden you go from being 3 or 4 to maybe 6, and then you're probably stuck in that 6-5 gear to where you're on the road and you might get locked out of a 4. So this is a big game for both teams, this Southern Alcorn. Our streak's going to come to an end, as you said. And I don't think it's going to be a pretty game offensively. I think it's going to be a defensive slog the whole day, women's game and men's game. But we'll see the battle of wills defensively. We'll see which team can turn it over the least and which team can have some sort of offensive efficiency.
On the men's side, last Saturday, Southern over Alabama State, 80-71. Prairie View A&M, a 13-point victory over Arkansas Pine Bluff. Jackson State, back to the winning ways, huh? An 18-point victory over Grambling State. Alcorn and a squeaker, 59-58 over Alabama A&M. Texas Southern over Valley, 80-67. Then that Monday night, that always tough Monday, Texas Southern over Arkansas Pine Bluff, 68-57. Prairie View tops the century mark, 102-83 of Mississippi Valley State. Southern over Alabama A&M, 67-46. I didn't look at that as being a victory by that margin. You told me that last Saturday. And then Alcorn State over Alabama State, 63-60.
I think for that A&M game, they had a chance to beat us at our place Saturday, and that's the tough part about this league. You win close, you lose close. You got to put it behind you. And I think for A&M, frustrated about losing at our place on Saturday, they go to Southern, just doesn't have any gas in the tank, and we see that often in this league.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. Can you be excited about conference play? Today, Jackson State at Mississippi Valley State, Prairie View A&M at Alabama State, Alcorn State, of course, at Southern is both women and men action. Texas Southern at Alabama A&M, and Grambling State at Arkansas Pine Bluff. Southern and Alcorn off Monday. Texas Southern at Alabama State, Jackson State at Arkansas Pine Bluff, Prairie View A&M at Alabama A&M, and Grambling State at Mississippi Valley State. Winning streaks on the line. SWAC preseason predicted order finish in softball. You call softball games. So familiar teams. Alabama State picked to come out of the East, 85 points. Texas Southern, 80 points out of the West. Will Charles be broadcasted tonight at Southern, of course. Yep, women and men's action.
I'll be leaving.
Now, this a person that's, outside the state, so that's great with interest. And Jeffrey Duplessis, do you remember that guy?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Classmate of mine at Grambling.
Yeah. Me, Jeffrey, and Ken Richard. Boy, we used to have some just great segments back in the day. Good guys, outspoken. Ken, of course, is very outspoken. Jeffrey, more of the smooth guy, but get his points across.
He loves his Saints. He loves New Orleans.
He's a good man.
I don't know if he's liking the Saints right now, but, I'm learning about you Saints fans. My in-laws are Saints fans. They live in New Orleans. You can't speak a bad word about the Saints. At no time.
I think that's most fans. Yeah, but a great regular season team, but playoffs just not been kind to the Saints. Speaking of not kind, Coach Odoms has to replace the quarterback coach.
So do we.
And a receiver coach. Coach Matt Leon going to North Carolina Central with Coach Trey Oliver and Chris Coleman, former receivers coach. So we got to make some additions to the staff. And people have been texting me and trying to find out what direction are they going to go. Well, I'll say this about Southern. I'm accustomed of having a balanced offense and a team that's ninth in passing. That's unconscionable. That's ungodly, almost. To be ninth in passing.
That's illegal. It should be a law.
Well, and I could think of a few other words that I can't say on the air. But when you think of Eric Randall and you think of Dre Joseph and Austin Howard, that I hopefully the addition will keep that in mind. That you've got to be balanced, you've got to be able to. Ninth, I got to get a drink of water on this one. Ninth in passing in the conference. You've been in this conference a long time, haven't you? That's ungodly.
Yeah. Well, I can only say from our end, we've got a couple of coaches to replace. Pat White, our quarterback's coach, is down at South Florida, and we lost a coach on the defensive side of the ball. So Fred McNair's got a couple of coaches to replace. My guess is that he'll probably wait until around spring practice, if not after spring practice, to make those changes like he did with his OC last year. But when you lose a coordinator at this juncture with signing day in 4 days, and that's going to be something we'll be talking about.
The second part,
that's I'm sure for Dawson Odoms, I'm sure he's got to figure out rather quickly. Once you get the signing class in and signed, you got to immediately get to work and get you an offensive coordinator, because you clearly have the pieces there with Skelton. I'm still a Skelton fan.
I knew you would be.
Yeah, and we talked about this last night at dinner. We would have been in trouble if Skelton had played that game in October 26th for 4 quarters. We can talk about that. You know, because Skelton made it happen, and he did in the championship game. We just got to him and some mistakes. But Southern's got to get some offense. It's got to get some continuity and rhythm. You got the quarterback that can do it. You got the running game that can do it better than it's been. Now you got to get the mind. You got to get someone to put it all together, and that's what the OC has to do. And we'll see what Dawson Odoms comes up with in terms of his hire there.
Well, I know Coach Odoms loves to be involved on the defensive side.
Yeah.
Offensively, it seems from my vantage point, I don't think he's as involved in the offensive side as the defensive side. And it doesn't make you feel any better when Alcorn fans basically text you and tell you if y'all had a quarterback, y'all would have won. I mean, or quarterback play. If you had better quarterback play.
Oh, yeah.
Let me say that. And, I'll go back to finish watching the game for the 26th time. But I think most coaches, they make adjustments. If you lose coaches on your staff, it seems from the outside looking in, Coach McNair always from within.
Yeah.
He'll look that way first and second.
Yeah.
For Southern, I just don't have a clue. Only just what I said earlier. They need to improve on that, the passing. If you're ninth, because to me you're one-dimensional. And when you're one-dimensional, it's harder to face a team that can do both. And that's why I said early in the year, the way Alcorn was able to evolve, not at the end of the season, but pretty quickly. Yeah. They had to change, and they had the pieces there, and the transition seemed to be very quickly.
Well, when you have Elliott Ratton, who was working behind Ryan Stanchek, who left to go to USM, Fred McNair said the system's not going to change. I mean, so it comes from the top. McNair's creed was, it doesn't matter who we hire, the system is going to stay the same. So if you can work with this system, then you'll be fine. And I think Elliott Ratton being in this system, knowing it's not going to change, then it's just a matter of he did. I mean, of course, everyone does things a little different. And Elliott Ratton admitted to me that, we're going to run the football a little bit more. We had some injuries at the running back position, but, the Braves pretty much ran the football. And then, of course, when Noah Johnson went down, Felix Harper, who's more of a pocket guy, he can run the ball as well. He was able to hang in there and make those throws with pressure, whereas Noah Johnson, great athlete, had the longest run in school history, 91 yards. He might bail on that play and try to run and take off with his legs, but Felix Harper would take that hit and hit his talented receivers. So that's a little bit of the difference, But we're losing 26 seniors, okay? Mm-hmm. You've heard the phrase, where's the beef? We're going to find out Wednesday when signing day rolls around, because there's going to be a lot of beef in that recruiting list. O-line and D-line.
I've been watching from afar. I've seen some nice commitments.
Yeah.
And one thing you have to appreciate is they're going to do what they're going to do, Alcorn.
Right.
So they have a philosophy of what they like to do, but much more impressive if they have to change or evolve, they were able to do it, and that's why I give them kudos for that. You hear a lot of talk about Alabama A&M.
Akil Glass.
They're coming. They're coming. Coach Maynard, outstanding coach. I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
They'll have their opportunities to prove themselves next year. I've also talked to people say, well, still Alcorn. The East is Alcorn until Alcorn gives it up.
Yeah.
In the West, of course, you have Grambling State that wants to bounce back. Southern, Prairie View. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. So tomorrow's not promised. You go to the championship 2 years in a row and you don't get it done, don't just automatically assume that you'll get there in year 3.
Yeah.
Then what happens? So we'll get into who's on the hot seat, whose seat is warm, all that conversation is going to come up, who's going to make the big jump. But, Alabama A&M is a fan favorite.
I'll say this again. We lost 26 seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? 20, that's a lot to lose.
That is a lot.
And so what that means is that you got to recruit your tail off. And yes, we have some guys sitting out that are going to make a big difference. Felix Harper's going to be the quarterback. Nico Duffy's going to be our number one running back. We got to improve up front, offensive line. We've lost a couple of receivers and Blair and Pringle. We lost some guys up front. Our back end will be back for the most part. We lost our kicker in McCullough. So we got some work to do. So with that being said, the learning curve in implementing that talent. But then you look at the East, well, who could be the biggest challenger? Clearly, you got to have a quarterback, and A&M's got it in Glass. They don't have Jordan Bentley, okay? They've got Ibrahim, a receiver, freshman of the year, I believe. He's going to be really, really good. Their defense was suspect. Alcorn showed it. Southern showed it. So I think the Braves are still the best team in the East, but A&M, if they shore up that defense and if Glass has a solid year, he'll be fine. I think Jackson's got some work to do. They just hired T.C. Taylor's offensive coordinator. We'll see that learning curve is going to have to take place, so there's going to be some setbacks a little bit there. And you got Bama State. Dr. Ely's got to rebuild some things there. They played 3 or 4 quarterbacks. Valley's got some work to do. I still think in the West it's Southern and Grambling. Grambling's my alma mater. Hick Bottom. They'll talk about the OC. What's going to happen with that. Looks like they're staying for right now. Grambling's got to figure out a way with Hick Bottom to make him better. Because I thought at times he looked good, but then other times he didn't. Grambling's defense was rock solid until the last 8 minutes of the Bayou Classic. And I think that is what allowed Southern to stay in the game and eventually win the game. So I think Coach Fobbs knows he's got to do something with the quarterback position. I think it'll be Hick Bottom. But if there's a guy that falls in his lap in the transfer portal, I think he's going for that too. So I think the West will be interesting. Who will be 3? Prairie View losing Jalen Morton, Tucker. That defense was suspect. What does Prairie View have in the bag? Coach Dewey said he got a guy in his back pocket at quarterback that can make a difference. We'll see. I don't know if we saw him this past year. I think UAPB could be making that push probably more so than Prairie View. Then, obviously Texas Southern's got a lot of work to do with Coach McKinney.
Well, there's no way to go but up in that situation. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Position coaches, they still need to be praised and paid.
Yeah.
The P&P, they can enjoy more. I still say the pressure's on Coach Odoms and Southern. I'm saying pressure. I'm telling you.
Is this seat lukewarm? Is this seat warm, or is this seat hot? Which one is it?
Depends on the spring. It could go from very warm to
sizzling.
Ooh. I'm telling you.
It's not cold though. Is it?
No. Just my opinion. Let's see the hires he makes offensively.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can know where to go up in passing offense from 9th to at least getting in the top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And every position would be open. I would declare every position open in the spring. I want to see some competition. And if you think you can just say, well, I can just show up because I'm a super guy and I'm athletic and I don't have to study and I don't have to do anything but just show up on Saturdays, that's not going to work, buddy. That's not going to work. What did Kobe just tell you? You got to study and you got to work at your craft. If you're that good, you don't need to work and study. Yeah. Well, you need to go to the XFL.
I agree. I
and a camera shows a lot on the sidelines.
Yeah,
I got a whole different attitude now. Don't you think you got to earn it? Okay, I think we're out of time now. You done got my blood pressure up here. 12 o'clock. I want to thank Dr. Prince. Producing today's show, all of the guests, Coach Van Pettaway, Coach Kerry Jackson, and Charles Atman. As I say every week, make sure you tune in next Saturday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Until that time, as always, peace and God bless.